The new royal retinue arrived in their quarters, with other paladins showing the new soldiers around. Arcturus was less than amused as the queen passed by a sensor array, causing it to short-circuit due to the amount of energy radiating from her. Serena looked at her quarters and almost collapsed from the luxury. After settling in and eating a meal, she and her retinue got the whole story up to now explained to them. By the time the sun finally vanished over the horizon, everyone was completely exhausted. With all caught up and basic information passed on, everyone went to bed. With nobody but Marcus still awake, the atmosphere around the ship was almost eerily silent. "Busy day, wasn't it, Ark?" Marcus idly said as he reconfigured satellite data. "Indeed it was, sir. I cannot say I was prepared for this," Arcturus said over the various beeps and boops of his system. "To think that all that shit took place in only 19 hours? First contact with a non-human species, discovery of a gray colony, encountering an entire medieval civilization made of elves. Magic, for God's sake. And my ex, no less. Hard to believe." Marcus wiped his tired brow and sighed. "Oh, very much so, sir. It seems fate has once again interfered, as you have said many times." Arcturus brought a drone over, serving a nice cup of tea. "Starting to think the entire universe is against me at this point. How are my family's remains? Those elves didn't get into Hold C, did they?" Marcus asked with a somber tone in his voice. "No, sir. As soon as we had guests, I sealed Hold C. As for your requests, they have been accepted. I have not yet been told who the couriers are, but I have the manifests and transponders. You will have the last in a few days at most." Arcturus beeped and displayed some charts. "Well, at least that's good news. I don't think I can take the stress anymore, Ark. I have to find a new project world now. I have to find someone else to take over from me when this is settled. I can't keep my family stuck in a cargo hold for the next 2 years. It's not right." Marcus sighed heavily as he sank into his seat. "Understandable, sir. Before we continue, sir, I need to show you something," Arcturus said and displayed a graph. Fluctuations in the sensor net. Red is the biotic spectrum. Blue is the geographic spectrum. Yellow is mechanical or artificial spectra. I'm guessing purple is the interference caused by magic. And black is?" Valtiel said as he analyzed the results. "Unidentified interference, sir. There is an unusual energy signature in the continent occupied by the factory. I have been moving factory facilities around to try to scan it and see what it is. It appears from archive records. It is a gray structure, but I have yet to pinpoint its location. Interference is still too severe. I am having difficulty properly filtering it out," Ark responded, showing more evidence and archives. "Well then, take notes. Item 1. Build radar array and sensor towers across the continent to assist with scanners. Make sure we properly set relay towers," Marcus said as he typed away at the console, searching through blueprints. "Yes, sir. I have the manufacturing specs. We still have 25,000 tons of resources in stock, despite the fact extraction operations have ceased. I will start production of the prefabs immediately," Ark replied. "No, you won't, Ark. You will offline and recharge. Just because all this nonsense has gone on doesn't mean you need to overdrive yourself. You will get a minimum of 3 hours offline time. That is an order," Marcus commanded. "Aye, aye, sir," Ark responded with a bit of a scared tone. "Item number 2. I have direct orders from the Union Congress. They've already heard about it and are bossing us about. Usually I'd tell them where to stick it, but they made a good point. I want portable field hospitals and full medical production starting as soon as possible. Emphasis on maternity and natal care facilities. Start using the scans of the elves to produce race-specific stim packs, biotics, and aid kits. I understand they have magic and all, but I'd rather be prepared," Marcus ordered carefully, double-checking a few plans and graphs. "I shall start procedures first thing, sir. The elves have a biology that is not very dissimilar to ours. It won't take long to change formulations." Arcturus displayed a series of graphs and biometrics data. "Ark, give me a moment," Marcus said, and started pressing buttons with a wry smile. "There. You've given me access to the media library?" Arcturus yelled, his voice echoing through the bridge. "What? You go through all this nonsense and spend 19 hours working because I'm unavailable and you have to deal with guests and you expect me to not reward you?" Police. But you have to promise 3-hour minimum offline time to rest your circuitry, then work, then movie time. I can handle most operations tomorrow while you take a break, Marcus said with a smile. Thank you, sir. Arcturus's voice was almost giddy. Very good. Please excuse me for a minute, Marcus said and stood up. Marcus stood up and headed for the cargo bay. Passing the quarters of the slumbering elves, he quietly, imperceptibly walked along. His steel toe boots barely made a sound as he walked past. He breathed a sigh of annoyance as he entered the main cargo hold, finding most of the unsealed cargo was strewn about the place. He face-palmed in frustration as he passed the cargo crates containing the lingerie selection from an abandoned contract, most of its contents neatly folded on the floor or atop other containers. He shook his head and quietly walked to a nearby cargo door marked with a huge yellow C. The door opened with a hydraulic hiss to reveal a very ornately decorated room. Tapestries and banners of various colors and patterns hung from every wall. One side of the room had reinforced shelves stacked high with marble tombstones, polished and hand-carved. The other side of the room had an array of coffins, urns, funeral boxes, and ash boxes containing various remains. Marcus closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He approached one coffin covered with medals, accolades, and a large Terran Union flag, and gently placed a hand on it. He closed his eyes, uttering a prayer to the empty hold, and took a deep, long breath. Ooh, okay. Now I understand why we broke up. Now I get it. A voice suddenly came from behind him. Who let you in? Marcus replied and looked at the offending voice. It was Andrea, his ex, dressed in a skin-tight nanosuit, her waist-length white hair flowing freely behind her. Oh, come on, Cookie Bear. You can't do me dirty like that. Marcus simply sighed and finished his paying of respect. Andrea was aware how dangerous Marcus could be, so she kept her distance until he was done. Marcus raised his head, patted the coffin, and moved over to her. He angrily grabbed her by the ear and dragged her out of the room as one would do to a spoiled child. Oh, wow. Andrea Marie Wilkins, I know for a fact your parents raised you better than this, Marcus angrily griped as he dragged her up to the bridge by her ear. Okay, ow. I'm sorry. Jesus, can you calm down? She said, rubbing her sore ear. Calm down. Marcus's voice echoed through the hall, several guests waking up in response. How the fuck am I supposed to be calm? Marcus yelled, starting a rant. I have spent 15 damn years traipsing around the galaxy dealing with bureaucracy and bullshit piracy, looking for any member of my family I can find, and everywhere I went I faced piles of bodies. I've had to wade through oceans of red tape in order to just see my relatives, let alone fucking recover them. And then I have to drown in an ocean of red tape to get access to this fucking planet that was scanned properly. By this point, several elves, including Ceres, 2 guards, and King Valerian had gotten out of their beds and were hearing everything that was said. Insult to injury, why not? I have to now play host to a delegation of medieval elves who have the potential to burn my face off if they sneeze too hard because somehow magic, I guess? And more so, the scans on this planet say there's gray tech here, which means I have to tell the mechanicus, which now means I'm going to be drowning in even more fucking red tape, which means the coffins in the cargo hold are going to be sitting there for another 6 months before I can ask anyone to leave. It's insulting. Andrea's face went white as she shed a tear. And now look at this shit. I have lost every member of my family that has ever existed. Fate is tempting me. Ooh, she's tempting me. I can hear the bitch cackling in the background. She thinks I can't, but I can. Oh, come now, look at all these lovely fertile ladies. Come on, Marcus, give me more family for me to kill. Yeah, sure. Why the fuck not? Marcus finally ran out of breath and sat on the floor in the corner, having a quiet sob. I can't take this anymore. I'd rather just hand this over to someone else than go find a new planet and start again. I can't take this anymore. Andrea sat next to him. Huh, that's what you think, huh? You think fate is effectively cursing you to be alone forever? How else does one interpret this situation exactly? Oh, sure, maybe fate is giving you a break and decided to torture someone else for a change. Yeah, I don't believe that shit for one damn second, Marcus said in a mocking tone. So, you're not even willing to try give it a chance? Andrea asked. Not a single damn thing has gone right for the last 15 years. Optimism is impossible when every path forward has a hurdle you can only use a sledgehammer on to get through. I refuse to inflict this on another person. Maybe, just maybe. When everything is finally settled, I can finally relax. Another 20 years, maybe? Marcus bashed his head against the wall behind him out of frustration. Well, that explains a lot, doesn't it? Andrea couldn't really say anything beyond this and just sat there. One thing. If just one thing goes right, just once. Maybe I can try calming down, but I won't hold my damn breath. But then again, I don't need to repeat myself. You've been talking to Ark after all. You know everything already. Marcus craned his neck, looking at her accusingly. She blushed and stood up. Well, no hiding from you, is there? I'll show myself out. Try to get some sleep, okay? Pfft, yeah, right, sleep, she says. Ha, that's a laugh. Marcus sarcastically said and returned to his pilot's seat, busying himself. Andrea closed the bridge door behind her, coming face to face with Saris and Serena, with King Valerian leaning against the wall. Well, shit. Actual elves. The reports were not kidding. Wow, are all human women this gorgeous? Valerian asked idly. Well then, you certainly don't mince words, do you? Andrea said as she approached him. Look around you. Look at our women. We have learned not to waste time and mince words. Men in our world have learned that sweet words and side glances accomplish nothing. We have learned that if we like something, we say we do. Otherwise, someone else does, and we lose our chance. I only got my wife as my wife because I simply walked up to her and asked, he said, gesturing to the two girls behind her. Well, that's understandable. Marcus got me the same way. Kind of surprised me at the time. And to answer your question, yes, we are. Andrea smiled and flicked her hair in a flirty way as she walked back to her fighter in the hangar. The two girls looked at Valerian with a scowl. He simply smiled, shrugged, and returned to bed. Saris and Serena likewise did the same, and the ship went back to quiet. The following morning was abuzz with activity as the royal retinues went fervently to work. By this point, Marcus's radio network was in place, and each of the royals could communicate with their kingdoms and rule from there. Aside from small stuff, there wasn't much to do beyond giving the local regents a few orders to cover their bases. The communications array helped the elven population stay fully aware of what was going on and why. One of the conditions that Marcus detailed with the communications array was no censorship and public access, to which they agreed. Everything was going a lot smoother than expected. By the time everyone had finished breakfast, Arcturus had completed his previous orders, building several prefabs for field hospitals and other things. Thanks to the radio network, the transition was accelerating faster than expected. Marcus, however, was more nervous than usual, and not due to his apprentices crowding around him, and even more so, having Andrea nearby too. Come on, where are you? Marcus idly said to himself as the ladies chatted to each other. The radio suddenly crackled to life, and an unnatural, broken biomechanical voice could be heard through the ship. By the light of the void, I see the path. By the power of the machine, I carve my way. By the fruits of Gaia, I take my steps, but it is through my will alone that I set the world in motion. Praise the machine, brother, Marcus replied in kind. Praise the machine. We have a small frigate on approach, requesting docking permission, following requisition order 77 Omega 3. The voice said again. Confirm order. You are clear to enter. Please obey behavior protocol code 16S. Proceed. Marcus replied again. Marcus, you invited the mechanicus here? Andrea said. In order to recover my mother's remains, I had to sign a covenant with them. Looks like they're finally here to collect. Marcus said and stood up. Stay, he commanded, heading to the hangar. Andrea went pale and grabbed the overeager Jacqueline, pulling her away from the bridge door before locking it. Arcturus, lock the interior doors, she commanded, and used a hologram to watch what was going on in the hangar bay. Marcus entered the hangar bay and waited as the most ornately decorated warship anyone had ever seen appeared and entered the hangar bay. The ship came to a slow stop, and within seconds, 5 strange men, clad in scarlet-red robes, walked out. They were not what Andrea was expecting. Apart from the creepy cult robes, it was just 5 normal dudes. No augments, no additions, aside from one very dapper chap who sported a monocle. Brother Marcus, it is so good to see you again, the highest-ranking one said, shaking Marcus's hand enthusiastically. Sure, please excuse me, I am somewhat stressed, Marcus said, looking lower than he ever has. Well, we have taken over and completed your contract orders. Here you are. The leader guy said and pressed some buttons. The ship's cargo ramp opened and moved down, revealing several carefully packed cargo crates and an oak coffin with a glass window. Marcus moved over to it and collapsed into tears at the sight of his mother's peaceful face from behind the glass. Andrea closed the camera feed out of respect and let him mourn in peace. 2 hours later, the new ship fired its engines and left in a hurry. The 5 men that came with it, though, stayed. Marcus returned to the cockpit and got back in his seat. He let out a huge, satisfied sigh of relief. Care to explain? Andrea asked. The cult mechanicus have decided to take over the uplifting project. They will assess the situation and try to figure out the best path forward. I'm not qualified for that shit, but they say I did a good job-ish so far. But they can handle it better, so they're here now. I've put them on the quarters in Deck D, and the last of my family are reunited. Talk about a weight off my shoulders. Marcus groaned and stretched out in his seat. The air around him lifted as if this were the first time in years he'd had a chance to genuinely relax. So, what happens now? Saris asked. Well, they will take over tracking and excavation of the Grey's tech and also taking care of the human ruins that are still around. They will also see to it that the local populace get up to space a lot more responsibly than I can within a much shorter time. My job here is effectively done, Marcus said. Well, Andrea retorted, standing next to him. That simplifies things. Prayers answered, I guess. Well, no. Now I have to find a new world, go there, terraform it, then build it up, then bury the family there. I can't keep it here anyway. Oh, thanks for uplifting us, but we find it offensive that the first thing you did after you gave us starships was to turn our planet into a graveyard herpa-derp. Yeah, not happening, Marcus mockingly stated as he started browsing the market. The girls just looked at him. Well, the trauma of your parents' deaths must have made you slightly stupider than I remember, Andrea said blankly, swatting him on the back of the head. The fuck? Marcus jumped out of his seat and looked at them. Andrea pushed him back in his chair and sat in his lap. Oh, come on, are you really that silly? Think about it. Isn't there just a teeny little iota of brain in that thick skull that thinks it might just be a bit wrong about the whole being cursed thing? She pressed her cleavage into his face. Well, You don't think that maybe the whole situation that just arose here is a sign that maybe life's giving you a break? She smiled as she unzipped the top of her nanosuit just enough. I mean, a beautiful planet full of gorgeous chicks who like to be naked all the time and who very obviously have a thing for you despite the fact it's only been a day? Andrea looked at the assembled ladies with a side glance and smirk. But maybe it could possibly be a thing where the universe is like, you know, I've nearly wiped this guy out and he's had enough. He needs to start living again. Here, bro, have a bunch of gorgeous naked women. You ever think of that? She finished removing her top and slipped out of it. That doesn't work like that. So maybe, just maybe, take advantage? I mean, these girls are clearly very into you. How could they not be? She shoved her cleavage into his face once again. Think about it, dumbass! She yelled, put her top back on, then casually walked out. Come on, ladies, our future husband needs to think a bit. Andrea ushered the group out, leaving Marcus sitting in his seat with his jaw open, closing the door behind them. Okay, so, oh, come on, I know, look, that glint in your eyes, that shiver in your bones, that little tingle you have when you hear his voice. You cannot tell me you aren't into him. I'm not a scion, and even I can tell these things. Andrea pointed her finger at them accusingly. Well, Saris shyly squirmed, Eiley. So here's the short story as to why you like him so much. He's devoted to any cause and never fails to finish it. He's a family man who will do anything for his kin. He's good-looking and extremely smart because you need to be in order to be a Corsair for any length of time. And he's essentially a war hero engineer. He's stupid rich despite what he says, and he has one of the most beautiful ships in the entire sector. I'm not surprised you get a bit wet when you get close. Andrea playfully spanked Saris. Well, wow. Okay. All the girls blushed. Okay, so what do we do now? Jacqueline asked as she picked her jaw off the floor. Patience. I have planted the seed. Soon enough, he will open up. I would strongly recommend you take the chance when he offers it. I grew up with that man. I know for a fact he's worth the effort, Andrea said, getting close to Saris. She grabbed the elf girl and kissed her. Saris was taken completely off guard as Andrea gently booped her nose after pulling away with a sultry smile. I'm looking forward to it. You are so soft. Andrea playfully gave Serena's rear a gentle pat, then walked out the door to the hangar.